This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am here in the very fine studios of Pod Populi Podcast for the people. I'm at the one in Palm Beach Gardens, which just opened, and it is awesome. And I'm not just saying that because I own the place, but that definitely doesn't hurt. I'm a little biased, but it really is a nice place, and this is a really nice part of the world. So, because this is a very wealthy community, there's a fancy med spa across the way, and on the TV, I see that they are showing the Alanis Morissette documentary that was on HBO a couple months ago, came out a few months ago, and I've seen it, and I highly recommend it. And there's a few things that really stood out when I watched it. First of all, it's really hard to overstate what an absolute thunderbolt that You Ought to Know was at the time. It was one of those songs that came out of the 90s, like Smells Like Teen Spirit or Mbop, that the first time you heard it, you were like, what the fuck is that? Because you knew that was something unlike anything you'd ever heard before or possibly since. So the second thing I got out of watching that documentary was Alanis is very, very Canadian. No doubt about it. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know, you know? It's not a bad thing. It's just she's very, very Canadian in her personality, which doesn't necessarily come off in her songs or singing. And the third thing I noticed was, as usually happens, the struggle always results in great music. And the success rarely does, which is a lot of times why an artist has a great first album and the second album is a little worse, and then it goes down from there. Happens a lot with hip hop artists. The struggle creates greatness, and then the money creates comfort that doesn't necessarily result in great art. And you can say that about relationships. And yes, we will get to the relationships part of this podcast in just a second. This is a Great Love Debate. I mean, Alanis has gone a really, really long time without another hit. Thank You, which I think was her last big hit, that was like 20, 25 years ago. So I noticed that on the doc too. I also, the late Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters, he just passed away a short time ago. He was Alanis's drummer when she hit it big, and he was on that big tour, and he's featured a lot in the documentary, and he's super good looking guy, really charming. But I got to say, no matter who the male is, being a male in a band that plays to an almost entirely female audience is a really good gig. And he let us know it's a really good gig. But finally, and the reason I bring this whole thing up, the thing that stood out about the doc was that showbiz is a place where you hear no 1,000 times from 1,000 people. Alanis heard it. I've been in show business a long, long time. I've heard it. But all you need is one yes from one person to change everything. She had that. I've had that. A lot of people have had that. And at that point, when that happens, who cares who rejected you? Who cares who didn't notice you? Who cares who didn't like you or respect you or understand you or appreciate you? They don't matter anymore. However you got to that place and got to this person, that person who said yes, they changed everything. And the most talented artists, they hear no, or we'll call you in an audition, or from a record label, or from an art curator 1,000 times. Not good enough, not what we're looking for, not what we need, not who we want. But you try, and you ask, and you search, and you hunt, and then one day, lightning strike, thunderbolt, and you're the star of the show. And this is all a preamble to what I want to get into, but it's all relevant in my brain, great love listeners. And I have a treat for you because you sat through that I've been asked about and you've been waiting for quite a while. People are waking from their 2+ year dating coma, and they're getting restless, and they're traveling despite the price of gas. They're traveling around. They're moving around. They're actually moving. People are moving. People realized when they were locked down in their community that maybe they didn't like their community, and maybe they need to go somewhere else. And all of that stuff absolutely matters, because are you ready? This is a list that we have made, and it has been stalled and delayed and rethought a dozen times. I don't think we even put this list out last year. I think we took the year off from it, which is not good, but that's how little things moved. But as our world and our priorities shifted, we kept simmering on this list until it was ready to taste. So today, my patient people, we are going to unveil to you the 2022 list of the top 10 cities in America in which to find love. Now, does this list get as much attention either from the media or from you guys or on the socials as our annual worst list? No, it does not. Misery loves company. Misery generates a lot of publicity. Sorry. So this list is not about mystery. It is about magic and hope and possibilities. And possibilities are close kin to probabilities. And while no city and no community and no area of the country is going to be the entire answer, we believe that these 10 cities are going to have high probabilities. So let me give you some reasons generally as to why these cities are good and other cities are not. The most important factor to me, and it should be to you, is, are people happy there? Are people happy there? Because happy people are dateable people. Happy people laugh and smile and take chances. And most importantly, they let walls down. The happier the people are in a city or within a community, the more ingredients are present for a connection. So, sorry, New York, and I am a native New Yorker, your misery quotient is really high. It's extremely high. New York will almost never make this list. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a lot going against it. But it's almost never going to make this list because it's just not the happy place, and it's definitely not that happy a place right now. You can watch the Sex and the City reruns all you want. Those girls were miserable most of the time. Meanwhile, back at Miranda's, misery. There was misery back at Miranda's. A happy city has a lot of love in it. And secondly, these cities have a great sense of civic pride. This city rocks. I love this city. This is the place I want to be. That's the attitude you're looking for. That's the community you want. Now, does having great civic pride like Cleveland overcome the fact that the people are extremely unhealthy and out of shape and have a complete lack of fashion sense? No, it does not. Sorry, Cleveland. You can say go Browns all you want, but if you're wearing brown and orange while you're saying it, it's not a good look. But the pride in the city, the pride that they have in that city, it is a good thing. So you will get there, Cleveland. Cleveland rocks. It's just not going to make this list. And other factors that led cities to be on this list is there a vibrant social scene? Are there places to eat? Are there interesting events? Is there culture and arts and food and a sizable gay community? So sorry, straight guys, the gay guys are what make a city sparkle. It's not the bearded bros at the beer bar. Denver. Also, are people moving there? Meaning, is the economy okay? Are there jobs and resources and reasonable housing that are attracting people to move there, not just from other parts of the country, but from all over the world? Because when that dating pool stirs and shakes up and you churn those waters, all the prospects and possibilities come to the surface. So we're going to take a quick break because we got to pay for all the possibilities around here. But when we come back, we will present to you America's top 10 cities in which to find love for 2022. That's called a tease, but we will be back right after this. And we are back. You want to have the best dating pool? You go to where the best looking people are. So I travel like crazy. I've been on the road at least 150, 200 days a year for 8 years. Even when the rest of the world was locked down, I still went on the road. And you might be like, that sucks, but I see a lot of places and things and people. And I have been asked many times, where are the best looking people in America, Los Angeles, or Miami? And my answer to that is Minneapolis. So Minneapolis is going to start off our top 10 cities. It's been on this list before. We have done quite a few shows in Minneapolis. We know that city really, really well. You want to go where the good-looking guys and girls are? They're in Minneapolis. Ladies, you want the tall guys? They're in Minneapolis. A lot of Scandinavian Paul Bunyan types there. And it's an active city. It's a vibrant city. It's a culturally diverse city. It is a clean, for the most part, city. So I know Minneapolis has gotten a lot of attention for not a lot of good reasons in the last couple of years. Do not let that deter you from Minneapolis. Is a fantastic place with a fantastic pool of daters. Fun, active, attractive, and a lot of people are moving there because there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies and small businesses that are relocating there. They've done a really good job of attracting that. Minneapolis kicks off our top 10 cities, best cities in America to date for 2022. Next, a lot of similarities. Chicago. Somebody at our show once, we always ask people to guess the worst city to date. And every once in a while somebody says Chicago. And I'm like, bite your tongue. Chicago is awesome. Now, Chicago is one of the worst weather cities in America. So they have 8 months of misery, but their 4 months of awesome are so awesome that you're going to be able to spend those 8 months of weather misery with somebody that you found during those 4 months of awesome. Best thing about Chicago, as far as I'm concerned, you could be a big fat guy and date a smoking hot chick in Chicago. Because Chicago is fun. And Chicago has so many things to do. And Chicago has a unique energy about it. You guys have heard me say that if many, many times on this podcast, that if the weather was the same everywhere in America for one day, meaning if it was 72 degrees in every city in America for one day, Chicago wins that day. Now, it's not always 72 degrees, so it doesn't win every day, but it wins that day because there is a uniqueness to Chicago. You can see anybody you want. You can do anything you want. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was set in Chicago for a reason, because you can have that kind of day in Chicago, and you can have somebody to do it with. The women are fun in Chicago. The guys are fun in Chicago. There's a really smart group of people in Chicago. These are people you want to date, and there's a huge pool of it. Chicago is the third biggest city in America still. It's going to fall behind Dallas shortly, and we will get to Dallas shortly. But it is still a mammoth city that has neighborhoods that you want to be a part of. So if you're living in Philadelphia and you're like, where can I go pretty conveniently and continue the 80% of my life that I like and improve the 20% of my life that I don't? Chicago, Illinois is always going to be your answer. It's always going to be on this list. Why is Minneapolis ahead of Chicago? Minneapolis doesn't have some of the bad stuff that Chicago does, but not as far as dating. Chicago is as good a place to date as anywhere. You want to go move somewhere warm and sunny when you're done with Chicago, go find the person in Chicago first, and then you guys can move and start your family wherever you want. The third city on this list, and I know this city very well, and I don't think it's made this list before, and here's how much that city has changed in a good way, is Boston, Massachusetts. Boston is wicked awesome. So Boston used to be sort of a starter city where everybody knows, there's a lot of colleges there. I went to college 40 miles from Boston. And people would go to college and they would have a great time and then they would leave. They would move to New York. They would move to D.C. They'd move to Philly. They'd move to San Francisco. And so it was almost like Boston was almost like the starter wife. They had a good time, but then they were ready for something else. Boston's not like that anymore. Boston people stay. Boston has the neighborhood and it has the always had the sports and the bars and all that kind of stuff, but there is more going on in Boston in a good way than just about anywhere in America right now. Boston sucked it up for about 20 years, and they did something called the Big Dig, which was a huge infrastructure project. And before it sucked, during it sucked, but after, it's spectacular. Boston looks good. It feels good. Yeah, New Englanders tend to be gloomy. Well, you know what? Other teams win, and it has changed that mood a lot. And there isn't that gloominess, which is, some people are like, well, gloominess is part of the New England culture. A lot of people have come to Boston from all over the country and all over the world. They're not necessarily, living and dying with the Sox. They don't care if the Sox win. So Boston is smart and fun and has people looking to date. Doesn't have people just goofing around. People are serious about dating in Boston. They want to get in relationships. They want to find people. It's a proactive dating culture. We've done a lot of shows there. We're going to do one again there later this year because I owe them one that got canceled because of the events of last year. But Boston is fantastic. It's doing well. It's looking good. It's hopeful. There's obviously a lot of smart people there. You want a lot of college, all you women, you're like, I want a college-educated guy. They're in Boston. But there's a lot of other kinds of people in Boston, and there's a lot of people from all over the world in Boston. So Boston makes this list, and like I said, I'm not sure it's made this list before. That's how big an improvement Boston has done. And as like I said, as a New Yorker, we always tend to look at Boston with a crooked eye. Boston's great. There's no getting around it. The fourth one on the city, you're probably going to be not surprised about that it's on it, but you're probably going to be surprised as why, and that is Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, the music city. So there was always a lot of, I would say take out the tourist part of Nashville. So let's take out Lower Broadway and the bars and the nonsense, which are super fun. They don't really help dating. That makes it harder dating in Nashville. It's the rest of Nashville. You want to know where all the best people from the country are looking for somewhere else? Almost all of them are moving to Nashville. They are. Nashville has so many different industries besides country music and drinking that you'd be surprised at. There's legal there. There's healthcare there. There's people there from all parts of the country who've discovered what a great centrally located, booming place it is. And yeah, good-looking people, fun people, things to do. And when I circle back to the happy that I brought up at the beginning of this podcast, people are super happy. People are like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in Nashville. Same with Austin. People are always like, why isn't Austin on your list? Because if you talk about happy and fun, Austin isn't a serious enough place. And dating requires a little bit of serious time. So Nashville has its silly, and it has its bachelorette parties riding around on trolleys going, woo, and all that stuff. It does. But it has a serious side of it. And it has a grounded side of it. And it has people who have a sense of community there, and they're proud of it. And so Nashville has all of the positive things that, when it comes to dating, that Austin does not have, and it has just as much of the fun things that makes Austin awesome. So Nashville made this. I think it's made this list before, but it's a little bit higher on this list. The next one on this list, and I brought it up 30 seconds ago, was Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas, has sometimes been on our worst list because the guys there are not the best. But Dallas is so growing. It's about to pass Chicago as the third biggest city in America. I mean, Texas overall is booming. I just mentioned Austin, but Houston, which is a terrible place to date. It's a huge city. San Antonio is a huge city. El Paso is a huge city. There's a lot of places, but Dallas is the heartbeat of Texas. And Dallas has everything you can want. You talk about people that are proud to be there. People love being from Texas, and they love being of Texas. And that really does trickle down. It creates an environment of, I want to be here, I want to have fun, and I want to share it with somebody. And the women of Dallas always make the list of the best the most dateable group of people in America because they're up for anything. And they're not afraid. And they're confident in a way that doesn't have a shortage of feminist quality about it. Not feminism. Not that anything's wrong with that. But they never let you forget that they're a woman first, that they're a girl, yet they still have confidence and they still have big personalities. And guys, the guys in Dallas, you have to step up and do better. Guys from around the country, you want to go date some women, go to Dallas. They're waiting for you. Go to Nashville too. They're just more fun in the South. They just are. And they just are going to make better relationships and better partners and better possibilities because the positive energy in Dallas, Texas, and Nashville and Boston, Chicago and Minneapolis, it's going to make up for a lot of things that every city has, every challenges that every city has. The attitude is going to get you through. So those are the first 5. The next batch of cities here. Now, people tend to say, well, you say that gloomy weather tends to make people unhappy. I do say that. So Seattle is never going to be on this list for a million other reasons. Portland's never going to be on this list. On the other hand, it doesn't automatically get you on this list if you are a sunny place either, because 3 of the worst places to date in America are Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Miami, South Florida. Those are all on the bad list. So you're like, well, if the weather's so nice and everybody's out on a boat and everybody's drinking and everything, there's no sense of urgency in those cities. Every day's the same, makes people lazy. Good weather makes lazy daters. There's no sense of getting together with somebody because you're like, oh, I'm having a pretty good time by myself here. It's lovely here. The one exception to that is, we'll call it Santa Ana, Irvine, Anaheim, Orange County, the OC. The OC has all of the good stuff when it comes to dating about that Los Angeles had, and almost none of the bad stuff. People are serious there about dating. People do settle down. People have a really good time. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of beautiful people there, but it does have a greater sense of community. Once people get embedded in the OC, they are part of a community. People in Los Angeles are there for a reason that has very little to do with dating. A lot of people go there to chase a dream, and that dream isn't necessarily to find their husband or wife. Orange County, and it is filled with a lot of people who left Los Angeles once that dream either succeeded or died. Orange County is filled with people and daters that you want to date and that are serious about dating. They want to have a family. They want to have roots. They want to be a part of the community. And yeah, the weather is awesome. The things to do are awesome. It's another place where people come from all over the world. The OC, 45 minutes away from Los Angeles on a good day. 45 miles. I don't know if it's 45 minutes. Probably 3 hours on the 405. But Orange County, Santa Ana, Irvine, Anaheim, Laguna, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, all of those places put that part of the world on America's best cities to date for 2022. Go to the OC. You're going to be like, you know what? I want to live here. Everybody goes there and be like, you know what? I don't want to live. People go to Los Angeles like, I don't know if I want to live here. And it doesn't have quite the sleepy, nearly dead quality of San Diego. Orange County's halfway in between both of those, Los Angeles and San Diego, and it's a little pocket of dating oasis in the middle. Move there. You want to be happy? Go there. The next place is another warm weather place, a sunny place, and that is Tampa. And if you haven't been to Tampa recently, you're missing out. So one side of Florida is absolutely the worst place to date, which is the side I'm in right now. I'm in Palm Beach Gardens, Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade County, some of the worst places to date with some of the most shallow people. And they wouldn't even be afraid. They wouldn't even be bothered that I said that. They'd be like, you think? Yeah, I'm shallow. The other side of Florida, though, a lot of those people came from the Midwest. People on the east coast of Florida, they all drove down 95. People on the west coast of Florida, on the Gulf Coast of Florida, they all came down 75, which means they came from Michigan and Ohio and Iowa and Illinois and places like that. Gloomy, left those places, came down to Florida, became happy, but they still fundamentally were good people. They're nice people. Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, Sarasota, all of them. And there's so much, there's a palpable difference when we do our live shows in a place like in Tampa, which you've done many times, or Sarasota, than when we do it in Miami. It's a huge difference. It's an attitude difference. There's an I'm in on the joke sensibility. There's not such a snobbery to that side of Florida. There's all of the fun, and Tampa looks fantastic. It is growing. It is booming. It is way cleaner than it used to be, and there is so much more to do. Tampa's a real hub. It has a lot of the good stuff. The best parts of downtown Orlando, not the tourist stuff, but the downtown Orlando stuff where people actually live and work, which is good, but Orlando's boiling hot. All that stuff is in Tampa now. And Tampa looks great. And everybody in Tampa is happy. And people are like, I am a part of this community. And I'm going to stay here for a while. So it's not filled with senior citizens looking to retire or looking to get better health care. It's filled with young people who move from a lot of other places. A lot of people in Tampa move there from somewhere else, and they're looking to stay. And if people are looking to stay in a city, those are people you want to date. People in New York and L.A., when I left L.A., 3,000 people move to Los Angeles every day, but 3,000 people leave. And that ratio is not nearly as good in New York City. If somebody's like, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be here, that's not somebody who's looking to date, and that's not somebody you're looking to date. If somebody's like, you know what, I'm happy here and I'm going to stay, that's the dating pool you want to fish in, and that is Tampa. And you can literally fish in the dating pool in Tampa. The next one on this list, which I've talked about on the news a few times, it is the greatest turnaround of any city in America, because at one point back in about 2015, this was number 2 on the worst cities in America in which to find love. And now the fact that it's in the top 10 best is remarkable. Props to us. We really pushed it, and that is Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, there used to be a handful of neighborhoods in Atlanta where you want to live in. Now, in Atlanta and around Atlanta, Fulton County, Cobb County, there's about 20 places that you'd be like, I could live here, I could raise my family here, and I could find the love of my life here. Atlanta is booming. Atlanta looks good. People are no longer leaving Atlanta in droves and moving to Tampa or moving to Miami. People are like, you know what? I am going to stay in Atlanta. And there are, there's something to be said for this Southern sensibility and Southern mentality when it comes to dating. There's sort of an old school feel. Boys are boys and girls are girls, and I'll hold the door for you. If you get offended by that, this probably isn't the show for you. But there's people there from the West and the Northeast, and there's arts, and there's music, and there's food, and there's culture, and there are more events going on in Atlanta than anywhere. Atlanta's a huge city, and everybody knows that. It's not the biggest city in America. There's more to do in Atlanta than anywhere. There's more things that bring people together in a good way, in a positive way, in a festive way than any other place. And you're going to be happy in Atlanta now. Atlanta's on the upswing. Atlanta's good. So Atlanta got off the bad list, got on the good list in a 5-year period. That's all it takes. Cities on the loser list, except for Seattle. I don't think you're going to make it. It's just too much rain. The next city on the list, which is a city that I've talked about many times before, I think it was 1 or 2 on this list a couple years ago, and that is Washington, D.C. And people are like, oh my God, I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. I don't want to get in that muck. Well, whether you're in the public sector or the private sector, really, really career-motivated people move to Washington, D.C. It has all the fun you could want in a major city, but people do get serious enough to settle down there. Does everybody have fun in their 20s in D.C.? For sure. They have fun in their college years in D.C. It's an unbelievable place to go to college, whether you go to American or GW or Georgetown or any of them, even nearby University of Maryland. D.C. is an awesome place to go to college. It's an awesome, fun place to spend your 20s. And then in your 30s, people tend to settle down in D.C. People are looking to get married in D.C. This impression that people have about, oh my God, people are arguing and at each other's throats in D.C. That's 300 members of Congress or whatever. And then all those guys go to the bars too. They're out there having a good time. It's not like that. There's more contentiousness in Philadelphia than there ever is in D.C. when it comes to trickling down to the dating culture. It's enthusiastic. It's positive. It's passionate in a good way. D.C., it's also beautiful. Washington, D.C., if you haven't been there and it's not just during 3 weeks of cherry blossom season, D.C.'s awesome. I lived in Europe as a kid. I was telling somebody this the other day. I lived in Europe as a kid, so I got to go to Paris and London and Munich and Monaco and all these places. The place that struck me the most when I was 9 years old, that I remember to this day, the first time I saw it, that I was like, oh my God, what is this place? Was Washington, D.C. And I can't believe not enough people go there. I can't believe the amount of kids who have never been there. D.C., if you've never been, D.C. will blow your mind. All of it. The waterfront, the neighborhoods, the history. It's great. And people were there know that they're in a good place. And that helps the dating. That's all going to trickle down to the dating. The next place on this list is a place that has been on this list before. And people were surprised the first time I was on this list. And I'm like, I think I first made this list maybe 2016. People are like, what? And that's Lexington, Kentucky. And people are like, Lexington, Kentucky, how does that even make the list? It's the second biggest city in Kentucky. And it's like the 60th biggest city in America. How does Lexington make this list? Well, if you've been to Lexington, Lexington's the next Nashville. I'm predicting it here. It's growing. Lexington, Kentucky, and Greenville, South Carolina. You want to know what the next version of Nashville is? Next, Chattanooga, which is sort of a suburb of Nashville. It's Lexington, Kentucky. It's eclectic. It's vibrant. It's growing. It's fun. It's festive. And I'm not trying to be a travel guide here. I'm talking about those in terms of dating, the dating culture there. There are things to do there. There are things to ask a girl to do there. Let's go to Keeneland in October. Let's go to a restaurant downtown. It's a beautiful part of the country. Are you going to get your occasional storm and tornado, though? Probably, but you're going to get that in a lot of America, too. Lexington, Kentucky, when you go there, you're like, what is this place? And people do discover it. And it's another place where businesses are being lured, and that means jobs, and that means people that are coming from other parts of the country, and they're going to be immersed in a part of the South that is awesome. It's just the right amount of South. And I hope that doesn't offend anybody, because I mean that as a compliment. My relatives are from Jackson, Mississippi, and I think that that's probably too much of the South. But Lexington, Kentucky has just the right amount. It's got things to do, people you want to do it with in a way that you're going to want to do it and you're going to remember. And that's why Lexington, not the biggest, it's getting there. It's a growing community. It's a place to date. It's a place you want to be. So the last one on this list, might even been 11. I don't even know if I did 10 or 11, is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It won this a couple years ago. It was the tops on this list a couple years ago. It hasn't fallen in any way in my impression of things. It's everything. Milwaukee is everything that Chicago is, and you take away some of the bad parts. Is it a little smaller city? Yeah. There's an advantage to being in Milwaukee or Madison, which is probably the best college town in the country, which is pretty close by. When it sounds a little bit smaller, under 1 million, you can kind of get into the flow of a city a lot easier. You can find your niche. You can find your group, find your neighborhood, you can find your tribe, your community, whatever you want to say about it. Milwaukee lets you do that. Milwaukee's thrilled that you came there from another part of the world. They're proud. They're like, welcome. We'll show you what to do. Have some cheese curds. Have a beer. The people are fun. The city is fun. People want to date. People are not, you don't find a lot of 40-something playboys running around in Milwaukee like you might find in a bigger city. You find people that are grounded. You find people that are intelligent. You find people that are active and social and looking to meet you and looking to do things with you. That's Milwaukee. So go Brewers, go Bucks, Milwaukee, Lexington, Atlanta, DC, Tampa, Orange County, Dallas, Nashville, Boston, Chicago, Minneapolis. There were 11. As a Baker's 10. I gave you an extra one there. And that is it. I do like doing that list. I get a kick out of doing the worst list because it gets people riled up. But I like doing this one too. And the only people that are going to complain about this list are the people who live in those cities. Because they want to be able to play, that are still single. People want to blame the city. They're like, what are you talking about? Chicago sucks. No, it doesn't. You don't understand. The guys in Dallas are losers. Yeah, maybe, but the city's awesome. And it's a great place to date. So shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com, if you think your city either should not have been on this list or should have been on this list. And I'll be very surprised if we get any said they should have been on this list because everybody wants to believe their city sucks. It does not. Your city's great. There are opportunities everywhere. There are possibilities everywhere. So get after it, Great Love listeners. Go to our website, greatlovedebate.com. We will have at least one of these cities on our live tour schedule shortly. I know we are definitely doing Boston because we, like I said, we owe them one, and at least a couple others too. Please, as always, like, share, follow, review this podcast. Your reviews mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem because, as always, at the Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.
The Great Love Debate.